All right. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us today, and a huge thank you to Deeppool for joining us. I first met Deeppool when we worked together at Virginia Commonwealth University in the photography department, and I think you had a piece on the wall. Was it a? It was a. Now I'm forgetting, but it was like a ocean waves with a mirror in the ocean waves. And was there a flashlight also involved, like shining at the
Yeah,
piece? This is now like I
I
don't know how many years ago, 6 years ago or something.
dude, it was a while ago. Yeah, I guess six by now. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I was
Uh,
just really impressed with like the sculptural moves that you were making and the very like kind of tongue-in-cheekness. Oh, the flashlight was illuminating a setting sun.
mm,
Yeah, and it was like it was very funny, but it was also very like uh talking about photo in itself is very meta. I really enjoyed that piece, and that's really kind of like what hooked me in, and all of your other work too. And then since then, you've also been developing an independent clothing line, and then your photography skills go into marketing that. So all that is just like yeah, it's been really fun to watch. And so thank you so much for joining us today.
cool. So yeah, it's great hearing about everybody right now. Nice to meet you. Cool. So this is my website. I figured it would probably be good to kind of give some visual about what kind of fine art I make. I'm trying to find this, I think, is the image that Dana was talking about. Oops. That we had looked at, that Dana had seen. This is sort of some of the stuff I was doing in undergraduate. Yeah, like back in 2019, when we knew each other. But yeah, I studied photography, photography and film, but mostly the concentration in photography, which was super fun. And I like love using a camera, and I love kind of here's some earlier work. But I always felt like there was something that like wasn't that I wanted more from it to like evoke more from the image. And I was like, honestly, like a lot of my work is just like taking these images out in the world or um of myself from like, either planned shoots or just like hanging out with friends, hanging out with partners, like all that kind of stuff. But I kind of took a route that was a little bit more like installation based, because I wanted to kind of like a lot of my photos were kind of just like basic, like what do they mean? And I think like bringing them out of like a flat realm can help sort of, I don't know, I guess like, support the image. I don't know if I'd necessarily would call it like sculptural, but I definitely would consider it installation. And also I was thinking a lot about like what does a photo mean? How can we interpret image, design? This is from like a show I did with a friend right after I graduated. Uh, so yeah, there's kind of a lot of components. Well, I really haven't talked about my fine art in kind of a long time. I feel a little rusty. Um, this is some stuff from 2022. There's just like a photograph being dipped into like a pool of water. Um, Oftentimes I go back and use a lot of like old imagery that I had taken. And I like this concept because I feel like I was talking to somebody recently, and it was kind of like they were like, "Oh, you're working with yourself, like you're working with your past self." Um, and I find myself taking like large chunks of like large period of time where I'm taking like a lot of photos, and then I'm kind of like storing them on my computer, my hard drive, and like editing them and then not really liking them, looking back at them a couple of years later and trying to refigure them out, which I think is a form of processing in itself. But these are some images that I made. Was this also 2022? I haven't shown work, fine art in proper since then. We're hoping for the end of this year. But yeah, I was making a lot of this work like right when I graduated, right as I got out of school. And I really loved it, and I still really do. However, I feel like there can be some inaccessibilities to like fine art. And so I started making clothing with this graphic that I made like when I was studying in Berlin in like 2018. Oh, here it is. I made this graphic and I kind of had this artist name, which has now become my real name, which is kind of crazy. But it's kind of like this rabbit, and then we have Deep Pool. And it's adapted a lot throughout the years. But this is something that I had drawn, and like it felt like it carried on throughout my work, even though the work was kind of void of drawing. Like it's mostly lens based and a lot of text and design, which is something I wasn't trained in, but I've always really loved design. Actually, VCU didn't accept me into their design program, so I figured I'd kind of just take it upon myself to teach myself. Uh,
Wait,
but
was photo your second choice?
yeah,
Oh
I tried to
no.
get for and they were like, "Yeah, you're not fit for us." So I went into football. Sorry to
Fate
sorry to break it to
fate
you.
had different, yeah, yeah. That's awesome.
Uh, so yeah, I guess what I'm saying is that like, I created this design. It seemed to always kind of carry over into the other work, even if it wasn't visually present. Like here, we kind of have the same graffiti going on, um, some text. So yeah, I started making clothing in like 2020. I think it was like right during. I had just graduated 2019, and I lived like, what, less than a year of my life, and then we went into the pandemic. Uh, and I was having a lot of artist block, and I think a lot of people were feeling kind of uh, uncertain. But I had a friend who was like, "Yo, I love the rabbit. Like we don't see that anymore. If you want me to ever help you make T-shirts or something, like I would love to help you." He was kind of starting to get into print and stuff, and I was like, "Sure, why not?" And so we made our first run of T-shirts, which became like super fun for me. Uh, and this is kind of like the early stuff. I just started continuing to do it. And I kind of like mostly put it up on Instagram. Some things were live events. Uh, but I think there's an interesting like bridge from the fine art into the clothing because yeah, it exists, I think, in a very different way, but it sort of also derives from the fine art. I felt like a lot of I haven't updated my uh website in kind of a long time, but I felt like uh I mean I love fine art, but I feel like there's a level of kind of like an accessibility to it um that I was finding like I was showing work and I was making a lot of friends and there were a lot of amazing people that I met, but like you have to be in school or you have to be in the arts or have access to, studio space or go to an exhibition, go to a museum. And I felt like, not everybody uh, is around that all the time. And of course, like when I was in school, I was. And so I kind of like, started out being in that mindset of like, oh, I can make art and everybody can come see it, but that's just not true. And so with the clothing, I felt like I was able to connect with like a lot of people, especially online or socially through just like being out. I live in Brooklyn. Um, but as I developed the clothing, I started adding quite a lot of uh, other graphics to the t-shirts and the hoodies and stuff. Like it's pretty much just streetwear. Um, I don't know if I can expand these. Maybe I can. Um, yeah, I started adding a lot of like of my own photography to, sorry, this is my bad Wi-Fi. Um, to the clothing so that it even more, more of the fine art and the photos began to resonate with the clothing. And it kind of started to build into uh like a second artist practice versus just uh me kind of slapping this bunny on a t-shirt and trying to sell it online. So it became a very important um parallel to my fine art. And they operate very differently, but I think they also come from this really similar place, which is like the rabbit, the driving force. But I've been super excited these days to kind of start putting some of my photographs on the clothing, which is kind of what I was saying earlier, is that a lot of this stuff is older. Um, Sorry, did anyone follow Patience Fantasy World? She's super funny. This is just, I'm just, don't worry about that. Um,
Oh shoot, I was hoping that we were just gonna take a tour through your feed.
that would be great too. That would be amazing. I would love that. Um, you guys can all see this, right? You can like see all of the Safari, right? Okay. Uh, I'm trying to be a little speedy because of time, but I started getting really into trying to figure out how to photograph the clothing. And I think something really cool, or that I'm very grateful about, uh, with having studied photography, is that I'm also like really interested in how to present my work. And so with that, I think, everything kind of begins to interconnect. I photograph a lot of the kind of ecom stuff. And I learned a lot from my undergraduate program with how to kind of set up Seamless and set up lights, and sort of like document things seamlessly, which was very, very helpful. I like to work a lot with other photographers, sort of developing the brand because uh, I don't know, I just think it's really fun to work with a team. A lot of the people that I photograph with are also like really good friends of mine. Um, and a lot of the models are people that I love. Uh, so that's also a really fun experience to be on a set as well and kind of use those image making skills and those photo skills to figure out how uh, you know I can kind of evoke a feeling while still doing this ecom kind of thing because I think we can always shoot stuff and it's like you know sort of basic and like a lot of my stuff is of my flats and stuff are basic but um when I shoot people and models I really try to figure out how to also add a sort of creative direction that feels like it's very specific to the clothing itself, and very specific to the concept and to the work, and not just sort of like a photographing it to photograph it. This was a really really fun collab I did pretty recently. That's my mom, her top comment. Um, this is something I did pretty recently with this girl Nicole, who's LA based, and she made the pants. Shout out Nicole. I think they're really wonderful. This was one of my favorite shoots I think to ever happen.
Yeah, can you talk a little bit? I mean, from an outside perspective, looking at sort of like when you post Instagram stories about the shoots and the set, like it's built out fairly well, like even just sort of looking at like the number of people involved and stuff. It always seems like there's a sense of community and that it's like just like you said, it's not really just an ecom shoot. Can you talk about that, like how you select the people that you decide to work with? Because this is like, I guess I had another question too, is that sort of would be the foundation of this next question, but like, how does it feel to have your identity be a brand? It's like that's like the seed that set all this into motion, set this, these shoots, these ecom shoots into motion. And so like how do you have like your personal identity is your brand and now you're building a shoot around that? Yeah, how do you find like how do you build that community that you choose to bring in to work with you? Sorry, that was a long question.
No, it's okay. That's a really interesting question. And I'm glad you asked that because I feel like I can have trouble verbalizing sometimes how it's everything connected. Um, to give a little bit of context, Rabbit and Deep have just this uh I don't know how to say like concept to begin with, and it wasn't the name that I went by. A lot has changed since then, but it's funny because I had started being like this artist under the name Deep Pool, uh, and I eventually just became like I started becoming that person, not really by choice. People just started calling me Deep Pool, which is pretty cool. I will say. So it was a very like in a weird way, it was a very speculative transition into Deep Pool. Um, but yeah, to get to your question, it is kind of this identity that I hold, which is, very like life imitates art, art imitates life, like whatever. But yeah, I mostly work with people. I mean, like I said, I'm very grateful that I wound up studying photography because it did teach me a lot about photo shoots and lighting, composition, just like a general teamwork, uh, how to build a team, how to produce a team, and a lot of the sort of direction that I started from, which was just making the clothing and kind of photographing it in my room. I also realized that I quite do like uh, doing the production side of it. And I think because that's like very community oriented. Uh, I wonder if this is gonna play on here. Um, no? Okay. Uh, I mean, yeah, that's a hard question. I kind of try to definitely like a lot of my connections are initially developed with people that I'm friends with first. And I think that's like very important. And that's a very important thing from school and like the privilege of being in an institution, of being able to be connected to the internet. Um, all those things I think about. I'm super grateful for them because it is kind of how I then begin to build a brand. I try to think of it more communally first than I do from like a money making capitalist point of view where I'm just you know trying to pay the best people I can. Like, I'm more interested in sort of meeting people along the way and you know also sometimes dipping into this like bartering system where it's like, oh, I can help you with this and you can help me with that. So there's a lot of exchange that goes on. Um, but one of my best friends who has a very similar identity as me is the photographer for this shoot. And I specifically reached out to them because I knew that they would, you know, do, I don't know the word, outlive the vision like I would want. We work really, really well together. And again, like I said, we have very, very similar identities, and that's kind of how we connected in the first place, through some mutual friends. And kind of since then we have become very close, and then also talk about work and yeah. So I reached out to them and I was like, hey, like I am not confident enough to shoot this myself. Can you shoot it for me? Uh, and they agreed. Their partner, who's also a very, very good friend of mine, is a hairstylist. So they did hair for the models. Through that, I met this wonderful woman who does makeup, um, Nicole. I met through my very, very good friend that I've actually known since middle school, who we agreed to actually just like do the shoot together. So she mainly produced it. And then this model is one of my really, really good friends. Uh, and we kind of worked on it a lot with Nicole's boyfriend too. Um, I don't really know if I answered this question. I feel like that's my answer was a little bit technical, just like kind of running through like how it happened. But I guess what I'm sort of trying to get at is that I don't really know if I'd consider it like, oh, connection, this and that. Like, I think it is really more about creating friendships and creating uh like partnerships with people that really believe in the rabbit. And I think that's a big part of who I decide to work with because a lot of these people are my friends and they're like, oh, I believe in what, not necessarily like they're like, oh, I believe in your career. 100% I believe in all of these individuals as well. But it's like there is an initial draw to like, what is the rabbit? I believe in the rabbit. This is my friend Kyle, who I met kind of recently at my job. I work at a restaurant. And he is from Hawaii and he had his friend photograph him on Hawaii because he's just like, oh, I love the rabbit. I want to bring it to Hawaii. And so he did. His friend is an amazing photographer. I've never met him, but it was kind of a thing of like, oh, our work talks to each other. Our work, maybe if we collaborate, and I felt the same way with Nicole and her pants, it's like you meet people and you're like, oh, I think whatever your like not even brand, like I kind of hate using these words like your brand, your business, like like whatever, like fuck that. It's like your belief system somehow meets with my belief system, and I think we can make something really cool out of it. Which is really just like that's it.
Kind of like the
Uh
vibes of it, or like just the feeling. I don't know.
yeah, yeah, like the aura of it. I
Yeah.
will have to stand for. I like who they are as individuals. I like what their passions are. I like what they're putting out there. And a lot of it too is just like I don't even think it has to be that sophisticated or that intense. It's just like, oh, what you're making is like really cool. Uh, and there's a part of me that like I want to see you succeed, vice versa. A lot of these hoodies that I have made recently have old photographs that I shot a really long time ago. But again, like I've tried to develop them back into the work that I make.
How does that
So this is,
how does that feel for you to mine your own archive? Is that are you just like, oh, I have these resources and I want to like just take advantage of them because they're sitting around, or does it do you find that like recontextualizing them kind of shifts what they mean for you and they grow, I guess. And it probably is like image to image like different, but in general, how do you find like your old archive works for you?
it's definitely a little bit of like a strange and meditative feeling to kind of go back into this large kind of archive of files that I have. I love reworking images over and over again. I think it's, very similar to how humans are in general. We're always like reprocessing information, thinking about the past, like, you know, sort of trying to make sense of things and rationalize our own experiences. So I think a lot of that is just simply that. We don't always do it with art. We do it with everything. Um, it is a little weird sometimes. The story behind this image is this is somebody that I dated like way back, maybe like 9 years ago. And I have been using this image that we took, and it was a very intimate moment. with the camera. This is on 4x5 too. If you're familiar, that is a very, very intimate form of taking photos with uh, the photographer and the subject. I think you have to spend a lot of time there, and you have to be very like close proxy. I mean, a lot of people use large formats to photograph lots of things, but with other people, I'd say it's quite intimate. And so this is an image I took of somebody that I used to be with, and I have been using it now, 2016, yeah, not in these current hoodies. And it is something that I went all the way back to and decided to use, A, for like very simple reasons. It's kind of an easy image to photo or not photograph, screen print based on its contrasty um, contractness. But it's weird, like to kind of bring that back. And I think when I start putting things on clothes, those images become a little less personal to me. Like this photograph that I'm putting out there feels very vulnerable because it is somebody that I, had a relationship with. And once things kind of go on clothing, it's not that you're selling out. Some people could say that, whatever, but like fuck them. But like, yeah, in a way you are sort of reducing the image to something that, I'm wearing. There's tons of people that wear this stuff that I don't know who they are. They don't know who I am. They don't know anything about me. And so, but yet they're still rocking a photo of someone that I used to date that I used to date. Like that's kind of crazy. Funny story. Never mind. Actually, I'm not gonna say anything. But um, yeah, it's sort of like it is a weird, yeah, reduction of the image to something that becomes a commodity. And I think that sort of, I don't know, it is a processing. It's almost like kind of you're also taking the resolution down of an image. Like this original 4x5 image is super, super, super high resolution, to my knowledge. And it's film that needs to be scanned through like a really nice scanner. It's like, a massive image. And this on the hoodie is a super tiny image and it's super, super reduced to just like a few pixels. And so that's also kind of an interesting way to look at it.
It's wild, and I guess you talked about this, like the idea of accessibility, but like your artwork, whatever. I guess that's like art in general, right? That's the basic concept of art is that it's a singular, unique object, but then through the use of the multiple, your work and your images are now like disseminated like very, very widely, geographically, and then also just like relationally, right? From like people you don't even know are now holding your image on their bodies.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of when we think of photos too, like what's that like efflux article? I feel like it was given to me in every class when I was in school. It's like about yeah, I mean, like an image being repeated and kind of distributed. It can, oh, the poor image. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. There's a writing called The Poor Image, where it talks about images dropping in quality, but then like raising in mitigation, like sort of like the lower quality of the image, or the more it gets shared, the less it holds its true resolution, but then like the further it can go, kind of like memes.
You're like deep fried memes. Um, yeah, I mean, I think that's a really interesting thing to think about with the use of image within the clothing. And as it grows and grows, this image is distributed more and more, which is super awesome. Uh,
Well,
but
and I
I
think
think,
I would just say also that it doesn't necessarily mean that it's like losing value, even if it's losing resolution or whatever. It's like it's taking on another meaning and things as well.
yeah, no, totally. I very much appreciate that statement because I think that's what a large part of the clothing for me is, it's what I try to play with. Because a lot of these images and even the rabbit itself feel very sacred to me. So it's just as vulnerable to make the clothing as much as it is fun. I think it's also vulnerable in a way that making art is, not doesn't have to be photography, but any kind of creative mode. It's like, you are agreeing to put a piece of yourself out there. But yeah, I think, like you said, it is a lot about trying to preserve the, yeah, like meaning behind the rabbit, the stories and the narratives of the images that go onto the clothing, without, cheapening it through streetwear. I mean, I love streetwear, but it is true that, like, yeah, it's a very paradoxical where it is like, yeah, it is a t-shirt. You can wear it a
I feel
million
like, at least
times. You can
from what
fall.
you've been showing, it's very much like it feels very intentional in a way that's like I would have a hard time of anyone saying it's selling out or whatever because it's like it feels very intentionally designed in a way that's like very I don't know how to say it, but like it's you can tell there's feeling in it, like it's real.
Yeah, no, thank
Yeah,
you
it's
for that.
like
No, go
I
ahead, go
feel
ahead.
like I feel like the authenticity it definitely comes through. And also kind of that like shifting in what its meaning is, kind of building on what Abby was saying. It seems like by taking your art and totally the agree or disagree, but it kind of seems like taking your art and putting it into this wearable place that's also created by your own community. You're kind of sharing your art in a very communal and organic way, but also it seems like maybe you're like part of the art of making wearable clothing is letting people make what they want of it. Does that seem like right?
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Yeah, thank you for saying. I mean, I think that's really an important point to say because a lot of what we think of art is like, it comes oftentimes from people's own perspectives, um, you know, in any capacity because that they're the person making it. But I think, we put it into the public. It's seen, and then other people, yeah, sort of develop their own connection to the person's work, which is exactly what you're saying. You're kind of making something of it. And so yeah, I think with the clothing for sure, it that idea resonates with art and with the clothing, which yeah, it is wearable art. I try to keep it in that vein. It's also a really, really fun practice for me because it's like I've had to let go a lot of kind of this restraint that I very much have when I'm making fine art. Um, and I'm very like a perfectionist, and it can sort of come this, it makes me a little bit insane. Uh, but with the clothing, I have let go a lot because I just like, I can't always be perfect. And I think also there is this appreciation with clothing that it will age. This is one of like the very first shirts I made. But yeah, that it will age and it will go into a washer and people will wear it. So like there is this sort of care that
Do we lose Deep Pool?
Seems like the internet may have given up.
Yeah. Shoot, I really wanted to ask them to talk about the use of hardware in displaying their fine art. I don't know if y'all have been, if Deepol is able to join us again, but if y'all been noticing like how they use like keys and locks to hang their
Yeah,
art.
it was so
Uh,
cool.
yeah, lots of use of like cargo straps, like industrial clamps, all that stuff I really like. Oh, they stopped sharing their screen. I think they're still there. Oh no, they left. Oh no.
Totally
Sorry.
gone.
Um, it does seem to have been like a little rough with the Wi-Fi, so thanks to everyone for hanging out and hanging in
Happens.
there. Yeah.
Internet be like that.
Yeah, yeah.
I just really loved how it just all felt so authentic. Like, not that most art doesn't, but like, I've just personally felt really kind of this like cynicism lately with all the, oh, AI is just gonna make everything or whatever. And it's like, it's so frustrating because it's like people don't value like the things like the lighting or like those just like small details that like those were choices that like you're taking away from the art. Like people are like, oh, it's making art. Like just like a photograph is like just taking a picture. The AI is just making the picture. It's like, well, no, but there's so many choices in there that aren't in the like. It's not the same. Like,
Yeah, yeah, that would be fantastic to ask them about AI. I'm guessing their phone died, but it seems like from their aesthetic or from what they've shown is like their work seems to beget more community. And that's
yeah,
like
it's very
antithetical to AI, which is about like cutting away
yeah, it's very
people.
the human connection element, which you can tell like just in the design choices. It's like, oh yeah, this was on purpose and this was thoughtful and like I don't know, it's just like the vibes. Like you can just tell it's like this was meant to mean something. Like this wasn't just like kind of cynical slop churned out by the computer. So, which I appreciate. So it's like it makes me feel good to see that like oh yeah, okay, there's still people that care, you know.
Yes, I think I'm back right now, if you can hear me.
Yeah, we can hear you. Yeah. Thank you so much for hopping back on. That means a lot to me. I can we just turn it straight over to a Q and A?
Yeah, let's do
Cool.
it.
Maybe just for like 5, 10 minutes, if you got to the time. Is that your
Yeah,
cat?
this is my cat. Yeah, this is Turbo.
Hi, Turbo.
He doesn't want to
Nice.
say hi. He's shy right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you again so much for hopping back on. Yeah, does anyone have any questions for Deeppool?
Yeah, I mean, I was curious about your the tech that you have behind your art. Some of your like light box of it all. Have you done any moving type art like with motors or anything like that?
I haven't actually. That's a great question. I would love to. A lot of what the kind of installation stuff that I have going on is very like DIY. So it's stuff that I, sort of find around my house, outside, on the street, wherever, if I have a studio, if I'm studying somewhere. Um, and so a lot of the like lost and found stuff has it derived into sort of a lot of the stuff that I start then continuously using, like the lights and stuff. I would love to do something moving. I think a lot of the movement in the work comes a bit naturally. Like, hey, it's like it comes a bit naturally. Like I have water in some of my more recent work, which is will move inherently. Actually, that whole box that I showed you leaked during the whole opening because we didn't seal it like as well as it should have. So we
Oh
injected in with
no.
the 10 minutes before the opening, and I just like slowly leaked out the whole time, which is kind of funny. Like
Well,
I
no, that's
wasn't
part of
mad
the
about
art.
it.
That's part of the art now.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's kind of like those natural things become really interesting with moving image. A lot of the stuff that hangs sort of does move around. It'll twist back and forth. I have that is mounted on like a plexiglass or something, the window. So naturally the movement throughout the day. But I would absolutely love to get into something that's a little bit more like less organically driven. I've been thinking a lot about like a pendulum right now, which is something I'm trying to make. I'm working on some clocks, which are obviously going to be battery powered or electric powered. I mean, like so are lights too. But I do try to think a lot on that.
Any other questions?
It's just a comment, but that the clock thing, I was wondering, I guess it's a question now. Is that related at all to the White Rabbit thing, like the Alice in Wonderland clocks or anything, or?
Yeah, for sure. I would say the White Rabbit kind of has like its personal meanings to me, but when people ask, it's quite easy to be like, I usually reference to Matrix. I don't know if like some of you are probably familiar. Yeah, all the White Rabbit with the Matrix, the kind of unveiling of the truth. Once you know, you can never unknow. You can either choose to not know, or it's fucked up, traumatic, who knows, you know. But also yeah, Alice in Wonderland, kind of going down the rabbit. Um, I don't need to explain it to you,
I
obviously.
think the Matrix meaning
But
is
yeah,
that I think they're connect. I mean, like it's a connected imagery thing. Like they're not entirely separate.
yeah, for sure. And I think like Alice in Wonderland is also a lot of the unveiling of the truth. She's also losing a lot of her innocence, and both of them are very psychedelic in that kind of way.
Any other questions for Deep Pool? Real quick, we got another cat. Oh no, they left. Nice.
I have a question about the construction of just one of the pieces, not necessarily the hang, but just there's one that's like a image of a sunset with writing on it, and there's so much of like what I really adore about your work is the designs. I'm just curious about how that one was made, or if there's any other one you want to talk about.
That one, I had a lot of fun making. So it is like two prints, one on each side of each other, or double-sided print is what I call it. And uh, the one with the sunset and the writing is a diary entry of mine. So it's like scanned in, and then the writing is juxtaposed over the image, overlaid. And then I put I mounted the prints on like a piece of foam core, so there's like one on each side, and then I framed it like with a normal frame, and then I kind of
Hey,
put these.
Deep Pool, I was going to try to pull it up just because your web is going slow. Can you walk me into that image? All right, I got it. I pulled it up. This is the one you're talking about? Yeah, cool. All right, sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
You that print on one side, and then the next side, if you click to the right, is like a darker image, and that's the other side of the print. And so yeah, I these like little hooks. I drill holes into the things, like some little hooks, and then these I put them through these locks. And then it's just like one of those like cable locks that people use to not like not like the one is that yeah the cable lock that uh, there's a good documentation.
I think we're asking too much of the internet.
The more I learn about it in school, the more I'm surprised it works at all. So
Yeah. I'm glad that you asked about that piece because it is one of my favorites, like with the locks on top. A couple years ago, I had asked them about like, was there anything like new that you learned working with like an installation method like this? And they said that at first they thought they didn't have to like secure the keys into the locks, but they actually ended up having to glue them in because they would like return to the neutral position and then just keep falling out, which kind of cracked me up because something that looks so secure being not secure was kind of fun to hear about. But anyways, I might actually message them and let them off the hook for trying to come back because that was good. Cool. Thank you all for joining. Again, thank you for putting up with the technical hurdles and being patient with like the slower connection. It was very generous of you all. But yeah, thanks for coming. And it's awesome to see everyone. We don't really have much of this, so it's nice.
Thank you for setting up and stuff. This was super cool.
No, it's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. Yeah. It'd be nice to say thanks and wave a goodbye, but it seems like they're even having trouble joining back into the meeting.
If you get a hold of them, do say thank you for all of us.
Yeah. I mean, they get this screen recording too for their own records.
Yeah.
And so
Okay.
let's do that now. Yeah, let's do it. Thanks, Deep Pull.
Thank you.
It was super cool. I really loved, like, it's just, I don't know, there's a lot of meaning, feels really like good to see. So
Yeah. Well, cool. Thanks again for coming. And yeah, I look forward to seeing your constructed self images.
thank you. Have a good night.
All right. Take care, everyone.